Hello, Fake Rooster here, hope you're all doing well. I wanted to talk about Leviathan today. Leviathan was the mid-season event for Battlefield 2042 Season 4. As with previous mid-season events, this came with its own limited time game mode and cosmetics. Now I wanted to do a review and talk about the game mode after playing it for the past few weeks, talk about what I liked about the game mode and talk about what I'd like to see improved in the future. Now I'm doing it in this format rather than a sort of live commentary because I had a family emergency and had to step away from YouTube for a bit, but I thought it could still be interesting and worthwhile looking at the game mode after the Leviathan event has finished. The game mode was set to a fairly competitive 2 squad versus 2 squad size, 8 versus 8. And in my opinion that's the perfect size for a game mode like this. As an attacker, your job was to take a device to a point and start to earn points over time as you tried to destroy data in one of the 3 areas available in the map. At spawn you had 2 devices, so the optimal tactic really was for each squad to take one device and attack separate points simultaneously, i.e. A and B. It's very similar to the tactics you might have seen in game modes like Rush in older Battlefield titles. The idea being that once A and B are gone, you can then jointly rush C, for example, and that's a tactic that I tried to implement as often as I could. It's worth noting that there are no tickets, so no team lives involved in this mode, meaning that victory really was all about how quickly you could assault and how many points you could assault at once. The team with the highest score in the lowest time won, and it made for some really interesting gameplay loops. The devices themselves could be disarmed by the defending team, so where you placed the device in the objective area was also extremely important. The devices basically gained points for you over time, and every objective that you fully destroyed you got a little bonus for. After a round attacking you switch to defending, and that's where the importance of the efficiency in your attack really shines through. If you attack 3 points really quickly, when you're defending, you don't have to defend for very long. If you attack 3 points poorly, then guess what? Your defense becomes a bit of a slog and you have to have a really strong defense or else you'll quickly be overrun. For playing the mode, you unlock cosmetics in keeping with the Leviathan team theme. You unlock these by getting ribbons, so for things like healing, killing, spotting and EMPing, basically just playing in this mode. And for maximum ribbon opportunity, I played mostly as a support, as Angel, as you got those ribbons for revives and for heals and for kills, so it's kind of an interesting character to play in that mode. Let's firstly talk about what I liked. I liked that the game mode had no tickets. It gave the feeling of unrestricted assault. You didn't have to worry about team lives, so you can basically full send, which adds an extra layer of chaos and fun. It becomes more about tactically poking holes in the enemy defense rather than being worried about where you're going to get killed from. For the defending side, the lack of tickets means it's not just about burning enemy team lives anymore. You've actually got to dig into the objectives, you've actually got to defend, and you can't always put in a static defense. You had to move around a bit more and be very vigilant for flanks. I actually saw a lot more communication in the game chat and with pings in this mode than I actually saw in other game types in Battlefield 2042. I really enjoyed the smaller size. As most of you know, I tend to prefer the 32 versus 32 experiences instead of the 64 versus 64 you get with Conquest in 2042. I personally think Battlefield generally performs better in smaller modes, but it hasn't really had the opportunity to flex its competitive capabilities in the smaller game types. The developers with this mode have shown what they can actually do with 8 versus 8. It's fun to play, it's challenging, and it has a very unique game mode. Now I'd love to see 8 versus 8 become a more permanent mode to the core 2042 experience. Hazard Zone is basically a complete failure at this point, and it failed to become the prime competitive mode of the game, so I think it's great that we can still see a diversity of game modes, and this mode shows that the developers haven't given up on the idea of competitive modes. 8 versus 8, the importance of it basically is that every player is important. One smart player in your team can make a significant impact on whether a team wins or a team loses. And it makes an impact on me as an individual. It makes me think more, it makes me want to have that impact. Where can I be defending from that gives the best defense of an objective? Is that with a sniper rifle in X location? Is it on a flank with a grenade launcher? And then when you're attacking, where should I be going with my smoke grenades? Where should I be throwing them to gain an advantage and pull off one of those flanks, those back rages that we used to see a lot more, I think, in older Battlefield titles. I really loved the freedom of choice. I like that you could literally take this mode and play it however you wanted, and to be honest, it works really well, especially if you've got quite a diverse team. In previous modes that came out for mid-season events, some specialists were limited, but with this you can really play it however you wanted and succeed with no meta needed. You could use Zane for those hard push breakthrough areas with his self-heal after kills. He's strong in attack just to punch through enemy defences. You could use Pake for both attack and defense in order to move smartly, flank the enemy or spot breakthroughs and then communicate with your team to shift the formation of your defense. Casper with his drone came in clutch very many times, and that was to spot enemies so you had a better sense of the big picture. You could eliminate things like spawn beacons with the upgraded drone that we now have with that specialist, which is great, and generally information is super key, especially in these smaller game modes. Angel and basically any of the support specialists were really useful in this. Not only did they have access to SMGs with quicker draw time, but because you could heal and revive and give ammo to your team, you could help pushes maintain their momentum. You could use smoke grenades in tandem with that to really push through. The same idea applies to the weapons. Because we can use any weapon, we can have some fun here. You know, you could sit with a 50 cal sniper and cover a lane. You could use SMGs and shotguns to really push through. Shotguns I'm going to get onto because there are some pros and cons and some things I noticed about them, particularly in this game, but we'll get to that. Or you could use assault rifles to be a nuisance no matter the range. Specialists, and I say this very quietly, they actually shine in this sort of game mode, and it makes a lot of sense to have those large amount of abilities and unique strengths to make a large impact on the overall outcome of a game. Now, I do still firmly believe that the class system of old Battlefield is better, but in these smaller modes I can sort of see why specialists are useful and fun, but I still don't think specialists have a place in that huge 128 player environment. I think we would be better with classes, but it is really interesting to me, who's been so against specialists, to actually see that yes, specialists can be really fun, but in the right context. In terms of improving, I think if the devs wanted to reintroduce this mode, there are a few things that I could see that might improve the overall experience, or are just some of my ideas. Firstly, I'd like to see a fully embrace of the sort of competitive element of this mode, and do things like turn off the minimap. I think not knowing where players are without an active recon player not only places more importance in the recon class and team intel, but it also adds to some unique gameplay. It would also highlight an individual player making a difference. If you're running spots, whether that's with the drone, with an ability, or with the motion sensors, you're helping your team no matter what you do. So you are having that little bit of impact in the overall game, and it's helping the team understand what's happening. I think also to boost the already high level of desire to win that's really present in this game mode, I'd like to see the developers borrow from Hazard Zone and put some sort of streak bonus. So if you're in a win streak of say 2 or 3, give the players an XP bonus. It gives players an incentive to really push these objectives, but also keep coming back and keep playing again and again. Maybe with some sort of limit to it of about 5 games or 6 games, so that you can't just farm wins. It would be useful though to have that as a motivation for the player, especially as those double XP and XP boosts in general in Battlefield 2042 are quite rare and quite hard to come across, so it'll be interesting to see that. And also something I've thought would be pretty amazing for most game modes is a heat map at the end of the round. We've got the end of round screen, but give us some sort of thing that we can tab into if we want that shows a heat map of where players were. I think in a competitive game mode like this, it could be really useful to help players understand how a game flowed, why they lost, why they won, and maybe it would help the game mode evolve. As players start to learn certain routes, they'd have to think of new ones to attack and new areas that might be required for them to defend as well. I would like to see more specific game mode highlights at the end of round as well, so things like time on objective, defensive kills, that sort of thing. give that a priority over things like, I don't know, headshot range or whatever it is that comes up at end of screen these days. I think having game mode specific thing could be cool, so that you can get on that board. There is some of them, and you do get it with the, the 3 highlighted players, but I'd like to see that in the stats at the very end as well. I'd also like to see, perhaps as an idea, some sort of global leaderboard. I think it would be fascinating to see the fastest records for attacking and fastest records for winning a game in this mode. Again, pushing the idea of competitiveness. Now, I'm not super diehard that we need a competitive mode in Battlefield, but I think given the opportunity that the Leviathan has presented, it would be interesting to have developers capitalize on that and create some really unique things. Imagine having other teams to compete with on leaderboards. It would be amazing. We could have YouTubers form teams and compete against each other. We could have pros come in. There's so much scope for a competitive element in Battlefield that has always missed the mark, really. We haven't really seen a successful implementation of some sort of competitive game mode that's really picked up by the community. This could be the opportunity to do that, and I know they tried to do that with Hazard Zone and it's failed, and DMZ in Call of Duty has shown that that could work, but Battlefield fumbled the bag. But those are just some ideas that I've got. I'm not saying they would vastly improve, because I think we've got a really solid game type and game mode here, but I think it could be interesting in a concept level to think about when we're attaching it to Leviathan and the game mode that came along with that. Ultimately, Leviathan event was a prime example of how good a small-scale competitive mode can work, especially as a mid-season event, to boost engagement and bring people back to the game. It showed that Battlefield still has some competitive life in it. The smaller scale, freedom of choice and infinite lives made Leviathan feel like a strong entry for a unique game type that made the player feel like their contributions actually mattered. I'm hoping to see more modes like this in the future, and maybe a return of other mid-season events as the Battlefield development sort of moves towards Season 5 and maybe beyond, as the rumours go, but we don't know yet. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Please let me know in the comments below your thoughts on Leviathan, and if you think it's a good competitive addition to the game. Give me a like if you've enjoyed the video, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.